Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast that comes to you from Kazan in Russia. I'm Gaurav Sawant. A major announcement by Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping will hold a bilateral discussion tomorrow on the sidelines of the 16th BRICS Summit. And this is the first engagement between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping after the Galwan clashes of 2020. The first steps being taken after China and India agreed to disengaging their troops at the two remaining friction points, which is depsang in the northern part of eastern Ladakh and demchok in the southern part of eastern Ladakh. The Foreign Secretary also clarified disengagement that has taken place in the earlier sectors that had been decided earlier. Those conversations did not take place in the current round. The conversation started quite some time back but continued till very late at night or till very early in the morning yesterday when both India and China decided to disengage their troops in depsang and demchok. But what next? How does this disengagement take place? We'll talk about this in greater detail and what it translates into action on ground militarily over the course of the next half hour. But before we move on, let's quickly listen in to Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri.
I can confirm that there will be a bilateral meeting held between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping tomorrow, 23rd of October, on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit. The exact time and other logistics are being worked out, but the meeting will take place tomorrow. I can confirm that there will be a bilateral meeting held between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping tomorrow, 23rd of October, on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit. The exact time and other logistics are being worked out, but the meeting will take place tomorrow.
Misri has been India's ambassador to China. He's an old China hand. But what does this disengagement or an agreement to disengage mean and translate into action on ground? How does disengagement and can disengagement or an agreement to disengage ensure that the troops do not clash the way they did on the either sides of Pangong Tso or something that led to Galwan clashes? And I put that question to the Foreign Secretary just moments ago right here in Kazan, and whether this will ultimately lead to de-escalation and de-induction. Listen in to my question and the Foreign Secretary's response.
Sir, namaskar. मेरा नाम गौरव सावंत है. I work for India Today and आज तक. सर, चीन के रुख में ये परिवर्तन आया कैसे आपकी दृष्टि में, और जब पेट्रोलिंग दोबारा रिज्यूम होगी तो फिर बॉर्डर पे ट्रूप्स के क्लैशेस ना हो जाए, क्या इसका भी कोई मैकेनिज्म है? और डिसएंगेजमेंट तो हो रहा है, क्या डी एस्केलेशन और डी इंडक्शन की भी बात हो रही है?
अभी जो अरेंजमेंट्स और अभी तक जो समझौता हुआ है उसे पहले हमें ग्राउंड पे इम्प्लीमेंट करना है. ये एनालिसिस की ये कैसे हुआ इसको मेरे विचार में बाद में देख सकते हैं. आपने कहा कि जो आगे फेस ऑफ्स न हो, क्लैशेस न हो, उनको कैसे रोका जाए. मेरे विचार में बहुत ही ये एक अहम आपने सवाल, एक अहम मुद्दा उठाया है, और हमारी आशा है और हमारा प्रयत्न रहेगा कि जो अरेंजमेंट्स वर्कआउट हुए हैं, जिन पे समझौता हुआ है, वो ऐसे अरेंजमेंट्स हो जिनसे इस तरह के क्लैशेस रुक सकें जो पीछे हुए हैं कहीं कहीं पे लाइन ऑफ एक्चुअल कंट्रोल के पास. तो इसमें आगे हमें देखना पड़ेगा और लगातार प्रयत्न करना पड़ेगा, लगातार कोशिश करनी पड़ेगी कि जो मैकेनिक्स हो जो अग्रीमेंट के, वो ऐसे रहें कि इस तरह के जो क्लैशेस हैं उनको रोका जा सके. जहां तक आपका अंतिम प्रश्न है कि डिसएंगेजमेंट हो गया है या हो रहा है और डी एस्केलेशन और डी इंडक्शन की बात कहाँ आती है, मैं फिर से यही कहूंगा कि अभी हमें पहले डिसएंगेजमेंट पे फोकस करना है और डी एस्केलेशन और डी इंडक्शन की बातें सही समय पे होंगी.
So very crucial. Remember, India and China, they've lost soldiers at the line of actual control after Chinese actions first in Doklam in 2017, which led to, of course, friction, but 2020, which led to Galwan clashes. India lost one commanding officer and 19 braves at Galwan. China officially confirms it had lost 5 soldiers, including the commanding officer of their regiment. But according to Russian wire agency TASS, China had lost more than 40 soldiers in the clashes at Galwan. So the two sides have shed blood after a series of agreements had been put in place from 1993 to 1996 to 2014, and yet the clashes took place. This agreement, the biggest question is, will China honor it? If you look at all the agreements that had been in place in 1993, 1996 to prevent border clashes, and of course 2014, that there would be no hot trailing of soldiers, and China wanted that in place, yet China violated all those agreements, and the transgression took place at Galwan. There was an attempt at Pangong Tso on either side, North Bank and South Bank, which ultimately resulted in India's quid pro quo operations on the Kailash Hills, dominating the Chinese Moldo garrison and the G219, a very crucial strategic road of the Chinese. And only then did a disengagement took place at multiple locations initially, with Gogra, Hot Spring, North and South Bank of Pangong Tso, PP 15, 16 and 17 Alpha, and now of course Depsang and Demchok. We need to see how that action takes place on ground, what mechanisms have been put in place to ensure that soldiers don't clash once again. But there's another big story that I want to get you on this broadcast, and that is the bilateral meeting between Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, and the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And at one point of time, the Russian President said, you don't need a translator. The body language and the relationship between India and Russia are so strong. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi briefed the Russian President about his visit to Ukraine, his interaction with the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, and an effort to find peace. But while that's an important aspect, what's also very crucial is the bilateral relationship in the field of defense, in the field of nuclear energy. Remember, India is a developing country, and India requires energy, nuclear energy, oil and gas, which India has been getting from Russia at very competitive rates or discounted rates, and that's held India in good stead. Fertilizers for farmers, and not just for India but for global south. That's been extremely important. But for the moment, I want you to listen in to Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri on the India-Russia relationship and how it's growing from strength to strength.
Leaders also shared perspectives on the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Prime Minister reiterated that dialogue and diplomacy was the way forward to achieve resolution of the conflict. He briefed President Putin about his engagements with the Ukrainian leadership and noted that India stood ready to contribute in bringing peace.
And joining me now on this special broadcast are Xenia Kondrateva, a journalist and a strategic affairs analyst who joins us from Kazan. Also with me on this special broadcast is Tara Kartha, one of India's foremost voices on India-China, India-Russia relations and on strategic affairs. And Xenia Kondrateva, I want to come to you first. You heard Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. What do you make, one, of the trajectory of the India-Russia relationship, and subsequently, of course, I'll come to you on the India-China aspect. But first, key takeaway for you in the meeting between President Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Hi, Gaurav. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I think what is important today is the warmness of between the two leaders that we have seen, and these kind of things at that high level of engagement between the leaders, they do not happen, by. So that's one important aspect. Now, when
Okay, Xenia, give us a moment. We seem to be having an issue with your audio and video link. The large number of journalists that we have here from across the world for this BRICS summit. If the effort of the West was to isolate Russia, you just have to come to Kazan on ground to see that clearly is not happening. Given the number of heads of state and governments who are here, 5 new crucial additions to BRICS, including Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Ethiopia, and of course Iran. And President Pezeshkian and Prime Minister Narendra Modi had a very, very good meeting, we are told. But I want to come to Tara Kartha for just a moment on the India-China aspect. Ma'am, you heard Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri on one, the disengagement process and the pitfalls ahead. What do you make of this extremely crucial, moment in the history of the two countries where there's an agreement on disengagement, even at depsang and demchok, which China used to see as a legacy issue? What do you make of this extremely crucial, moment in the history of the two countries where there's an agreement on disengagement, even at depsang and demchok, which China used to see as a legacy issue?
Yeah, I think it's pretty dramatic, right? Can you hear me?
Agreement on disengagement. Okay, give me a moment as we try and reestablish that audio link. So from Kazan, to New Delhi, we seem to be having issues with the network in a situation where connectivity is key between India and in India and the world. But I want to now, for a moment, also switch focus to the third major development that's taken place today, and that's the bilateral between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian. He's just been elected. And Iran has also just been made a part of the BRICS. So two crucial developments there. India and Iran share civilizational ties. India also played a role in Iran becoming a part of BRICS. That's point one. And point two, this was the first meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the newly elected president of Iran. Both countries close civilizational ties, and from what sources tell India today, Iran also respects the fact that India is very, very close to Israel, and yet, the relationship with Iran remains on an even keel. There was a dialogue on dialing down tensions and pressure. Iran fired 181 plus ballistic missiles on Israel. There is apprehension that there could be a massive strike back from Israel. And the hope is that it will not cause massive damage to civilians, civilian areas. Will it actually mean that targeting only military installations in Iran and not their oil infrastructure, which could impact oil prices globally, their nuclear infrastructure? Now, India and Iran talked about dialing down tensions. Let's once again, listen in to the Foreign Secretary on this aspect. When we asked President Masoud Pezeshkian how was his meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi after he came down from that meeting, well, he said it was a very, very good meeting. Tara Kartha, if I have that audio conversation back with you, ma'am, I want to understand from you what you make of this disengagement agreement between India and China. Why now? And what is it likely to lead to when the bilateral meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping takes place tomorrow?
I see it's a very dramatic kind of a thing to happen just before an equally dramatic, meeting in Kazan, right? Here you have somebody who is apparently under arrest from an international warrant for his arrest, President Putin, sitting and chairing this huge meeting. So where's the, that itself is dramatic enough. But the India-China, one hopes, this is, it's pretty huge, especially like you said, every part of it, right? You've been there, done that kind of thing. Those are areas where I never thought that depsang would get sorted out, to be honest. So if all that is happening, it's a definite sign of hope. But the thing is, as a former foreign secretary said, China has this tactic of a noose, it tightens and loosens. So when it gets bugged with you, it will tighten the noose. So right now it is loose, but there are, as you know, there are issues which are ahead in terms of disengagement that can all be sorted out. But the question is one of trust. Will China pull back its troops sufficiently to the pre-2020 levels where you have a degree of comfort? Can you, I mean, and the main thing is here, I think, Gaurav,
Yes.
is that just yesterday, I think, they've had a live firing of Taiwan. Okay, it's a very, very high, it's a sudden increase in their tensions on that side. So China will want to keep this side quiet for the time being. So everybody knows that. We all know that China is in this place where it doesn't want more enemies than it can handle. Also, there will be a bunch of countries watching to see what happens between India and China. Nobody is going to be very happy if India and China get along well. So there are a lot of roadblocks along the way. There are a lot of choices you have to make. You know, if you're getting friendlier with China, that's not something your US and the others are going to like. But this is, I think, from President Modi, I mean, from Prime Minister Modi, it's a pretty big initiative. And one hopes, because if these two countries get together, then BRICS
Okay.
becomes active.
Oh, absolutely, and especially these three countries, RIC, get together. That's truly a game changer. Russia, India, China. In case they are on the same page, it's an absolute game changer for the world. However, in RIC, it's the C factor that just cannot be trusted. Given the fact, and who knows that better than you, ma'am? 1993 agreement, 1996 agreement, 2014 border defense cooperation agreement, the BDSA, and yet, despite the BDCA, you've had what happened at Galwan. After Galwan, very clearly, India perhaps will never ever trust China unless it can verify. Now, this disengagement, what do you make of the verification process that India would seek, and how do both the countries ensure? Before I bring in Zina Kontrateva once again, ma'am, how do these two countries ensure that the troops don't clash once again, or if you talk about pre-2020, there isn't another Chumar-like incident, or there isn't another incident, like demchok, that Chinese soldiers come in, stay for some time, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, and then go back.
No, I think one good thing, which from what I read in the press, I don't know what actually it is. One good thing in this is the groups are going to be 15 soldiers each. So they've kept the numbers down so that there's not an inadvertent, heightening of tensions. Number two is the fact that you're going to be meeting frequently. That is built into this. So the moment you talk, then the tensions reduce. But the point is what signaling China will give to its troops, because the troops will follow what Beijing says. And we saw what happened when the hero of Galwan was given all kinds of honors. If that kind of thing is going to happen, then it's not a good show. Also, they are increasing their military capabilities. Their SIGINT, for example, in Shigatse, there's a huge facility which has come up. They have, like I mentioned in another show, there is a settlement which has come up next to Pangongso, which are 38 kilometers from Pangongso. Huge settlement with about 100 plus buildings. Is this for the PLA? Who is it for? So this is all stuff going forward. But as of now, as of this moment, it is a definite sign of hope. If these two giants can get along, like you said, then there is, you can shift even climate change. There's so much of potential. But the key is trust. And like you said, it will be trust and verify.
Yes.
How to verify, that is the key. So that means you're going to have overflights, you're going to have satellite imagery, you're going to have to do all of that to ensure, and your own imagery, not somebody else's. It's not someone else giving you intelligence, because that could go badly wrong. So you have to have your own capabilities for trust and verify.
Okay. If we were to see the situation on borders vis-a-vis Pakistan, Pakistan wants peace with India, and it wants that so-called Ramzan ceasefire when it faces trouble along the Durand line or all along the AFPAC border. When it's facing heat there, it wants peace at the LOC with India. The moment they are comfortable there, terrorism increases on this border. In your appreciation, is China doing just the same piece on this border so that it can increase pressure, as you rightly pointed out, on the Taiwan on the Taiwan Taipei belt? And how do you think would countries like the United States or all the countries of the Indo-Pacific, and India is such a crucial member of the Quad, be looking at these developments here in Kazan?
yeah, they're not going to be very happy if we get, if you're going to get too close to the Chinese. But the fact of the matter is, which the US and everybody else knows, that as neighbors and as people, like you said, have had a very shaky history in terms of clashes, it's going to take a while to get to the level of your relationship with the US is so multifaceted. I mean, I can't even count the number of working groups we have with the US, right? It's huge. We have a very good relationship with Russia.
Yes.
As of now, that is also working very well. So the fact is that there is a limit how far you can go with a neighbor. With this kind of history, both powers are rising.
Okay.
Both have strong leaders, and they know that. So the trick is, what I think this government is doing beautifully is managing all the relationships together. I mean, let's hope that continues. As long as China sees a profit, when I say profit, I mean strategic profit in cooperating with us, it will continue to do so. As of now, that is the case.
That's the message that India has been trying to send across all along. Will China see dividends of peace, that peace pays richer dividends than conflict, where China too has lost soldiers and goodwill in India? But does China truly care about goodwill, or does it only want to move forward on brute force, which of course was stopped at Galwan? But Zenia, if I have you back, I want to understand from you the role that Russia plays now in the BRICS Summit. If or the effort of the West was to isolate Russia, what do pictures in Kazan say? I want you to tell me what you've seen all along. The number of heads of state and governments who are here. Describe to me what you see in Kazan.
Right. I hope the network is back. So I think it's unprecedented for a BRICS summit to be that big, because we all remember how it started from a small grouping on a sort of paper at a level of a concept coined by American economists. It has become a strong geopolitical force, I would say, that makes the West concerned. And if we read Western analytics on BRICS, it's always, anti-West, they're challenging the West, they're challenging the dollar. But then when you actually hear what the BRICS members themselves are trying to say,
Well, Zenia and Tara Kartha, for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast from Kazan in Russia. Many thanks. For the moment, I also want to get you to a lighter side of our visit to Kazan. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived here, the Indian diaspora was here in large numbers to receive him. And these were Indian medical students. Over 1,000 Indian medical students are studying here at the Kazan Medical University. Of course, there are also Russians here in Kazan and across Russia who are learning Indian dance, from Kuchipudi to Bharatnatyam to Odissi to the latest Bollywood dance, and they were extremely excited to perform in front of the Prime Minister. I caught up with some of these young Indian medical students, and I caught up with these Russian dancers dressed in traditional Indian attire to receive Prime Minister Narendra Modi, also members of ISKCON and Brahma Kumaris. I leave you with these images of the grand reception Prime Minister Narendra Modi received here in Kazan, Russia.
कजान में जो नया कॉन्सुलेट खुल रहा है, उससे आप लोग का क्या लाभ होगा? वे कॉन्सुलेट इतना महत्वपूर्ण क्यों है भारत का?
सर देखिए, हमें कोई भी इमिग्रेशन या और किसी भी काम के लिए मॉस्को जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। वो हम कजान में ही रह के कर सकते हैं, और ये हमारे लिए बहुत लाभदायक हुआ, क्योंकि हम लोग स्टूडेंट हैं और स्टूडेंट के लिए समय बहुत महत्वपूर्ण होता है। ये हमारे समय को बचाएगा।
क्या उत्साह है जो आपको अपने शेड्यूल से अलग यहाँ निकल आता है?
That we see our Prime Minister for the first time, and also everybody is there, and उसके साथ साथ मेरा मम्मी Prime Minister को देख पाए तो बढ़िया बात है। मैं श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी को एक ही चीज़ बोलना चाहूँगी, वी लव यू, हम आपसे प्यार करते हैं, मैं उछिन के विश्वास, और मेरे लैंग्वेज में आमी तोरे बहुत प्यार है।
आप मुझे बताइए, आपका उद्देश्य क्या है?
अभी तो बस मोदी जी को देखना है। हम सुबह से 7 बजे से इधर आए हुए हैं, और मैं अभी 6th ईयर में हूँ। लकीली इस साल मुझे मिल रहा है मोदी जी को मिलने का अवसर। आई एम वेरी हैप्पी फॉर इट।
performing for the Prime Minister?
It was very excited. We was so nervous.
Nervous.
Because we rehearsed this dance about 3 months and now it's the time to show it. We were so nervous.
You were?
You were.
Did you enjoy?
Yes.
When did you start learning the Indian dance?
When I was 4 years, my mom decided me to Indian dance in our town. So now I'm dancing here.
What all dances do you know? What all Indian dances do you know?
What all Indian dances do we know? Kathak, Bollywood, Garba. Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi.
How many of you have been to India? Have you been to India?
No. What? Мы очень хотим. We really want go to India. Go to India. Please.